But what we want you to understand is that the humanity is changing. Everything is breaking down. And so recognize that the place of greed and control is becoming less powerful. And we want you to recognize that the soul is opening up to their human so that the human can recognize there's more of a connection with the energetic pattern that lies within them than what they've ever thought before. But what we also want you to recognize is that the human factor between free will and another's actions can also shift and change timelines or the scenario of future events. So we want you to recognize that the future is always free-flowing and it is not always a precise. I wasn't meant to know. I'm supposed to stay right here in this present moment and live every day and absorb and learn in this moment so that I could work up to. It's like going to school. I had to learn my lessons. I have to pray a certain way. I have to do, I have to light a certain amount of candles. I have to do all of these things. And you're supposed to honor me and, and pray to me and bow to me, put me on the pedestal. That's the old paradigm. And it's so funny because I see Buddha a lot, but I see the original Buddha, the Buddha that created the understanding of people that have been CEOs, who've been very powerful in businesses that they've run, and they've sold their businesses and they're starting new businesses or creating new business models that are.
What's the master's message for our audience, podcast audience?
Hi, this is Akanksshaa. If you're new here, please subscribe to my channel. If you resonate with me, please like, comment, and share. Welcome to Multidimensional Soul Podcast and a Talk Show.
We have with us today Lisa Wetsel, who is the Akashic Records Consultant. A very warm welcome, Lisa, on Multidimensional Soul Talk Show and Podcast. It's an honor to have you here.
Oh my gosh, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
This is part 2 of a 2-part conversation. If you have not watched part 1, then we highly recommend that you watch that. The link for that is provided in the video description.
I have seen at times future timelines in the Akashic, but they have been not so very, very clear. What I understood is that you are shown the timeline to the extent you need to know. So I want to confirm that when you access the Akashic, first of all, it's like accessing quantum field, as I understand, because there's no concept of time and space. They are multidimensional and they are beyond time. So how does this work? Can we actually access the records and see future timelines to get guidance as to which is a better path for me or something like that? How does it work?
Yeah, so recognize that the answer is yes. You can be shown different scenarios with different situations, but what we want you to recognize that there are many times where the future is not shown, as the human experience is meant to exist in the present moment and take one step at a time. But what we also want you to recognize is that the human factor between free will and another's actions can also shift and change timelines or the scenario of future events. So we want you to recognize that the future is always free-flowing and it is not always a precise. Okay. And, and it's interesting that you should even bring this up because I've had the experience. It's been a couple of years ago that there were some things that were going on in my life and huge changes were happening. And I wanted to know what was happening in the future. And I couldn't, whenever I would ask my own records, all I would see is black. Nothing. There was no words. There was nothing but black. And then I decided, well, I'm going to go to a tarot card reader. And it's like, I can't, they're not letting me show you. And so then I went to somebody else. They're not showing me. So what the point was with this exercise and me recognizing that, and what they told me, they said, if you knew what was ahead of you, you wouldn't do it. I wasn't meant to know. I'm supposed to stay right here in this present moment and live every day and absorb and learn in this moment, so that I could work up to. It's like going to school. I had to learn my lessons. I had to get my footing. I had to experience all these specific events in the moment so that it could continue to carry me into the future to where I am today. But if they would have said, okay, 2 years ago, they said, you're going to be on a podcast on November 10th, and this is what's going to happen. Well, 2 years ago, a podcast wasn't even on my mind. That was not even a thing, so not ever expecting this. So, but what I would have done is that I would have been holding on to, well, I'm going to be doing podcast. And I would have missed all of the steps that I had to take to get to that place of doing the podcast. Well, then, because I missed those steps that I needed to learn and to process, to let go of, or to absorb, whatever it is, all these experiences, we probably wouldn't be having this session today. We probably wouldn't be talking today, because I just messed up my whole timeline, because I was like, well, I don't have to do all this, because this is what my future is going to bring me, and this is what's just going to happen. So, and the guides constantly tell people, people always want to know what's going to happen in the future. And, it's when the guides say, no, you have to stay in the present moment. There's a reason why, because we have lessons to learn. We have people that we have to meet. We have situations and circumstances that have to happen that lead to that future. And it's not meant for us to skip them. We have to experience them. But if I'm living in the future, I'm just kind of skating over everything that's happening in the present moment. And that's not what we're meant to do. And that's why they typically don't show us what's in the future, because it's more important to stay in the present.
True. We are in a historic kind of era right now from Earth's perspective. As we are ascending, this is happening for the first time in the history of Earth. And there is a lot of chaos, and there are a lot of different opinions in terms of timelines. Now, I know that the future is not set in stone, and these are probable futuristic timelines that we can see. But what is your guidance that from the records as to what is going to happen from now, especially 2025 has been very pivotal. And I understand for the next 5 to 7 years are going to be pivotal in human progress kind of perspective. Humanity as a whole, as we are ascending. A lot of institutions are coming to surface and crumbling, and a lot of these things are happening. And then there is AI and transhumanism. So what is the probability? What kind of timelines do you see from records perspective for humanity right now?
What we want you to recognize is that the most important timeline, and it's like I'm seeing, like there's like a major timeline that's thick, and then they get thinner and thinner and thinner as they go out from this main. But what we want you to understand is that the humanity is changing. We want you to understand that what is happening to each individual is that they're allowing themselves to become more whole and who they're meant to be as spiritual beings. Recognize that the old mind's thought processes and the old way of being is falling and fading away. Recognize that the place of greed and control is becoming less powerful, and the individual that lives more from the heart and compassion, love, is more powerful. We want you to recognize that the old constructs, the old way of being, the old thoughts and ideas are falling away rapidly. And we want you to understand that the original ways of being, the original way of being oneself, the way that one communicates with one another is coming forward in a way that once was but has been forgotten. We want you to recognize that the soul is opening up to their human so that the human can recognize there's more of a connection with the energetic pattern that lies within them than what they've ever thought before. This is what is falling down and falling away, but what is also being created at the same time. And this is what we want you to know. So basically what's happening is that, these old belief systems, again, it's that old, like what we talked about, this old power structure of money is everything. We've been so we've been so conditioned to believe that money gives me purpose, money gives me status, money gives me whatever. And the bigger house that I live in, the job, like a CEO of a company or the founder, it gives me more power. And because I live in this structure, then I can control others. And so, and that's just an example because it's the easiest example. But what happens is that we've created this division of these individuals that have power because they have money, and the people that are below that don't have the money but are beautiful human beings as well. Okay, so but what's happening is that I call it the caste system, and you understand that it's like you have the people that are in the power and the money are the ones that are seen. The ones that do not, they're the ones that are hidden. But what's happening, it's almost like the roles are beginning to reverse. That the ones that have been hidden are coming to the surface, and the ones that have been seen are falling away. And so you see what it's doing is it's bringing the structure to where there is no hierarchy. It's going to be one, I see it as one straight balanced line. And so where humans are humans, period, said and done. So, the value of money and what money can bring you, we're letting go of these old belief systems. That's what's falling down. It's not that there's not going to be money. It's not that, money's still not going to be used, but the belief of what money can bring us is what's falling down and what's going to be not significant anymore. And the whole idea of power, I'm going to control you. I'm the boss. All of that's what's shifting and changing. And what's so interesting about all this is that I get to see it all the time. I'm finding that I get the privilege of talking to people that have been CEOs who have been very powerful in businesses that they've run, and they've sold their businesses, and they're starting new businesses or creating new business models that are this way. That it's that being able to look at somebody and finding their strength and bringing their strength to the surface and allowing them to flourish in who they really are and who they're meant to be, but doing all of this with equality. I may be one of the decision makers, but I recognize that all of you, I can't do this without you. So I'm going to honor you, and I'm going to respect you, and I'm going to make you equal to who I am. We're going to care about the earth more. We're not doing things, running businesses for money. We're doing things to help each other and to help the earth. So it's like I can see very clearly that this mindset is changing, but because we're on this beginning part of this, it's harder to see globally. It's harder to see, because those that are the loudest are still loud, but they're losing their power. And they're losing their power behind the scenes. Like we can't see it on the news or, just by looking at the big building with the company name on it or something, but it is shifting and changing. And those that didn't have voices are beginning to have the voices. And I know that it's so hard for people to see because there's so much chaos going on, but all of this chaos is having to happen so that those that didn't have a voice before, or that felt that, those that were trying to control or treat people with inequality, trying to control people, trying to belittle people. Well, those people are losing power. And I can see it very clearly. And those that have been controlled and belittled by these other people, they are standing up. They are getting to have a voice now. It is shifting, but we're just in this time frame of watching it unfold. And so it is coming. And I get to witness it every day, so I can say so clearly, I know that this is happening. I know we're changing as humans. It's amazing, the people that I talk to all around the world. And I am constantly humbled by being able to see, no, this is changing. It may be one person at a time, but that's what it takes. One person at a time. The more that I can do my personal work, the more that I change my belief systems, the more that I begin to understand that my soul is your soul, that we're all created, is connected. We are all one. My choices and decisions affect things, affect the earth, affect the sky, affect people all around the world that I don't ever even think about. All of this is changing, and we're in the midst of it. It's happening. Now, as far as AI, they're saying recognize that this is a controversial subject, but what we do want you to understand is that the gifts of technology have been brought to the earth so that humans can advance in a way that bring more equality, in a way that humans haven't seen before. We do want you to recognize that artificial intelligence is a master of creating wholeness, completeness, and oneness. But what we do want you to recognize is that there are individuals that can maneuver and manipulate to create harm, but that is going to fade away as the human nature begins to change. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. So for AI and transhumanism, especially, what I understand is Atlantis and Lemuria had a fall. They were destroyed because the technology advanced more than spirituality. And now we are making an effort that that doesn't happen now. So can we access the records, and what do the records say, that what can we learn from the ancient civilizations?
Recognize that basically the ancient civilizations fell due to control. If you begin to look at why civilizations are no longer in existence, you'll begin to recognize that it's because another civilization took them over. So basically, again, it was this power struggle. So where one city, and I'm in the United States, and so this is the Native American story. The reason why, the Native Americans were in the United States way before white men, came here and took over. But what happened is that the control of the white man, they came and they took over these indigenous cultures because they wanted to conform them to what their belief systems were. And so literally it was a power struggle that disintegrated and dissipated specific tribes, that are in extinction now, that they're not even in existence anymore. These old cultures, old traditions, the old ways of being, the original ways of being. This is where this power thing, again, it came in, and instead of working together, no, it's my way, and we're going to defeat you, and we're gonna just totally take everything away from you, and you're going to conform to who we are. They're saying recognize that the power struggle is what has been the biggest harm in all of humanity, and recognize that it's the greed and the control over one another that has created civilizations to fall.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know a whole lot about like Atlantis and some of these other things that people talk about a lot. And people may not understand that aspect, but I guarantee you that there was something about control that brought that down. You may say that, it's just something as simple as being out of balance with nature and with technology. But you have to understand, okay, well, let's just wait just a minute. Let's figure out what the behind the scenes story was. what was happening that was trying to create the over control of one another and not allowing balance to be made to where it's integrated and it all works together.
Right. When you talked about power, and not just from religion perspective, and religion has been a kind of reason for many wars and the power struggle. But even when we see spirituality, there is false light. There are spiritual leaders, so called. They want to take your power away, and similar to religious leaders, they say that you have to go through me to go to God. So, what do the records say about these false light leaders?
You just said it. It's false. It's a false belief. And recognize what we want you to understand is that every one of you has the light, the understanding, the knowing, and the oneness of what is. What we want you to recognize is that belief systems are being broken down, the power structure is being broken down. What we want you to understand is that individuals are finding their own light that stands within them to shine their light brightly and stand independently without a structure or a format to follow that creates obligation. And so, I love this question. This is like one of my most favorite questions because I've watched this unfold. And, the way that my guides explain is that they always talk about the empty mind, that the more that my mind lets go of belief systems, I have to pray a certain way. I have to do, I have to light a certain amount of candles. I have to do all of these things. And you're supposed to honor me and, and pray to me and bow to me, put me on the pedestal. That's the old paradigm. That's the old way of being. And if you recognize again, well, who's in control here? Okay, so I'm doing exactly what you're telling me to do. Same way as a religion. But the truth is, what we're moving into is my recognition that I don't need a book to read. I don't need to say 50,000 prayers a day. I don't need to eat certain foods. I don't need to honor whatever. I don't need to light the candles. You don't have to do any of that because the oneness and the wholeness is within me. I know my own truth. And I'm the only one that's going to get me to the understanding the wholeness and the completeness because I have to let go of all of these belief systems and these structures that they're telling me that I have to have. Everything is breaking down. And so, a lot of people like me are to this place to where, I'm just giving you some information, but it's up to you to process it. It's up to you to figure out how to let go of whatever it is. I'll give you some guidelines, but I am not your guru. I am not the preacher. I am not the one that's standing on the pedestal beating my fist of you have to do it my way. Absolutely not. This is your journey. It's who you are, and you have to find your own identity. And again, what the masters have always said, and they keep saying, is that the more that we let go of this control, of these belief systems, the emptier the mind is. They call it basically we're deconstructing our belief systems in our mind. The more simplistic the mind is, the closer you are to your own guides, your own intuition, the universe. The more that we can clear out our mind and stand in the wholeness of who we are, the more that we are one. And, and it's so funny because I see Buddha a lot, but I see the original Buddha, the Buddha that created the understanding of, oh my God, I'm one.
Yes.
All of the answers are within me. But that was before you had to say all the prayers, before you had to do all the rituals. Because if you really listen to Buddha's story, he tried all of that. It didn't work.
Yes.
He sat down under the tree and
then
said,
yes.
letting everything go. That's the truest essence of who we are. That is enlightenment.
Yes.
And so it is important for people to recognize, and this is part of our sovereignty. It's part of, being able to understand equality. Because if I'm standing in my truest, purest essence, and I don't have any belief systems that are telling me that I have to be a certain way, because you think about how many of these belief systems are. If I can be free of all of that and I can stand in my purest essence, in my heart, my love, my soul's journey, if I can stand right here, right now, I can see you soul to soul. I can see the person that's walking down the street soul to soul. I begin to see everybody the same energy frequency that I am. There is no separation. That's the goal. That's the idea. And so if I see everybody soul to soul as an equal, then why am I going to put somebody on a pedestal? And why would I expect you to put me on a pedestal? Absolutely not, because we're equal. Remember this whole balance, everything that we've been talking about. We're all equal and we're all one. We are all the same. The only thing that creates any difference between you and me is what my mind tells me. Period, done.
So true.
And that's my
Yes.
soapbox moment.
So true. What's the master's message for our audience, podcast audience?
At this time?
Mhm.
Okay, so what we want you to recognize is that each one of you is an individual, loving, caring being. And we want you to understand that you're moving more into a place of your heart, soul's resonance. And what we want you to understand is that it's safe. Humans have a feeling or the idea that it is fearful to let go of the mind's construct. But what we want you to understand is that the mind is a logical thinking product of who the human is, and it will still consist. Recognize that the thoughts and the ideas of the belief systems, the traumas, these old energetic patterns that are thick and heavy are what we're asking you to let go of. What we want you to understand is that you're moving into a place of love and peace. It is not to be fearful. It is not to be afraid of. It is simply a place of understanding who you are as a human being without the thoughts and the ideas of others identifying who you are or who you should be. We want you to recognize that fear of letting go of the old constructs or the old way of being is what prevents humans from moving forward into the oneness of all things. We want you to understand that you are constantly guided and supported, and your allies are the angels, the galactic beings, the beautiful earth beings. Every existence that is around you is of the energetic nature that is allowing you to create a more fluid frequency and consistency of energy. The idea and the understanding of vibrational frequency is a must. We want you to see that you can raise the vibrational frequency of who you are as a human in a human construct and move into the fifth dimensional energy, which is a place of love and joy. We also want you to recognize that the human can let go of the idea that they cannot achieve this. This is meant for all humans that are willing to accept this thought and this idea. It is the truth of who all humans are. You're simply shedding the components of the mask and the cloak that has been hiding you. We're allowing you and asking you to move forward in the truest consistency of who you are to help assist humanity find the truth of who they are. It's energetic breakdown of the old ways. And as humans begin to create their individual journey to stand in the truth of who they are, it creates the energy flow which shifts and changes the dynamics of all things. And this is what is meant for humans at this particular point. So I do want you to know that, the way that the guides have always described this evolution of moving into the fifth dimension, because we've been talking about the fifth dimension energy, and it's hard for some people to understand, to get a concept that we're just moving into a different way of being. People want to again put it in a construct of, okay, so 3D is low energy, 5D is high energy. There's a hierarchy there again. So if I'm in the fifth dimension energy, then I'm better than. Okay, so this is everything that we're trying to break down. And so I've had people say that before. I don't like the word 5D because it feels like it's superior. Okay, that's not what's being said or done here. So my guide said, okay, well, let's just do away from this hierarchy way of thinking, and let's just use it as a timeline. And, just like a specific, just a linear line. Okay, at this end of the line is where misery is. It's where my trauma is, where my sadness is, where my feeling inadequate is, that I'm not good enough. All these things, this is where this end of the timeline is. This end of the timeline is the fifth dimension, but it's also the institution of joy. So my guides call the fifth dimension the institution of joy. And so when you're looking at this linear line and you're at this place of depression, of anxiousness, of fear, of control. Okay, so I'm here. If I start shedding this stuff off, I start moving up my little line. And then I start learning how to shed and adjust, shed and adjust, shed and adjust, shed and adjust, until you can shed enough off to where you can finally make it to the end, which is the institution of joy. And so if we can rearrange this whole shifting of what's happening from this lingo, this spiritual lingo, let's just get down to the nuts and bolts of it. We're moving from a place of misery to a place of happiness and joy. If you want to get happy, start shedding your baggage. Plain and simple. The more that you let go of, the more that you're standing in the truest essence of who you're meant to be. And then that's going to take you to the fifth dimension, or the institution of joy, your happy place. And a lot of people call it nirvana. You know, that used to be the old term, is where is nirvana? Institution of joy. This is what we're moving into. And so, we don't even have to make it that difficult and say, well, what happened to the fourth D? Well, the fourth D is in there. It's I call the fourth D the hallway. It's the place where it's the transition point, really, where, okay, I've thrown off enough stuff. Now I'm here and I've had these glimpses of the fifth dimension, the institution of joy. Boy, it feels good there. Man, I like it. But I have to fit in this 3D world, and so I still have to hold on to these thoughts and ideas to accommodate people's belief systems that I have to be a certain way, I have to act a certain way, blah, blah, blah. And then we go back and forth, we get pulled and tugged. And so what ends up happening is that in this fourth dimension, this is where a lot of people are right now. When you feel like you're lost, you feel stagnant. This description that I get over and over again, I don't feel like anything is moving. I feel like I'm stuck. I don't want to be out in the world. I'm isolating. These things, that's the fourth dimension, because it's like you've shut enough of that 3D off where you're not comfortable there anymore, but you're a little bit too afraid to move into completely changing into this fifth dimension energy. This is the hallway back and forth. So once we start integrating more of that 5D energy, you start getting a little bit closer and a little bit closer to that fifth dimensional line, and you're able to pull away more and more from that 3D. But you understand it's a process, because we have to deprogram, and we're so fearful of letting go of what we've been conditioned to be, because we've been that way for centuries. And and so we're comfortable even when we're not comfortable. I may not like it. I might not like being in that energy, but I know what it is. I can predict it. I can live from my mind and make logical choices, because then I can kind of have control over what's happening. But then when we move into this fifth dimensional energy, I feel like I want to let go of everything, and that's scary. That's why we have the fourth dimension. It's that transition place. And that's what we're moving into. So this is what's happening right now, is that we're learning to shift into, to become comfortable with being in our happy place.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. And what is the master's message for me, my son?
I'm saying love. So what we want you to recognize is the truest essence of who you are is love, and recognize that is the understanding that is most needed at this particular time. You have a tendency to fall into your heart, and you recognize that you have heart pain. We want you to understand that it's time to acknowledge that this heart pain can be set free, and that it's no longer needed. And once you begin to recognize that these components of pain are are allowed to be set free, then what you're going to find is that you're going to be moving forward more in the light and the truest essence of who you are. At this particular time, that pain, that heart pain, is triggering your mind, and the mind is holding you back in fear of letting go of these pains because of the fear of repeating what once was. And this isn't so. Recognize that you're moving forward in a new energy pattern that is no longer needed for you to hold on to this old pain, and you will not repeat the patterns that have been had.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I have a few questions that I asked towards the end to all my guests, like a rapid fire. Can I ask you those? If you were to explain multidimensional soul to someone, how would you explain it?
Okay, the light language is coming through again. Hang on. The multidimensional soul is a soul that can exist in one dimension, but have contact in all dimensions. So what we want you to recognize is that the fifth dimensional energy pattern is an example of a multidimensional energy pattern. The soul that lies within the fifth dimension consciousness can travel upward and it can travel downward. And so we want you to see that this is what a multidimensional energy pattern for the soul is for us.
What
Does
is
that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. It's like walking in all worlds, really. So it's like, I can understand that, like, my soul, where I am today, I can travel up to different dimensions because I can access different dimensions. I can see different dimensions, and I can understand what's happening in different dimensions. But I can also go below, and I can go into lower dimensions and function and maneuver through darker, heavier energy as well. And so it's that point of being able to travel in all the different dimensions, but stay whole and solid in who you are.
True. From my perspective, I have seen myself as a multidimensional soul from a higher dimension, projecting my consciousness across space-time dimensions and multiverse. So one thing is traversing across dimensions, but also having an aspect of your consciousness projected in different dimensions. So
yeah, same thing. Yeah. You said it much more eloquently than I
did. What is holistic well-being according to you?
Okay, so that's a good question. As a matter of fact, holistic well-being is the understanding of the whole of who we are, and recognizing that the universe is multidimensional, and that the human is a whole and is connected to all things. It's the wholeness of who one individual is. So we want you to recognize is that it's the wholeness and the completeness. And they're saying mind, body, spirit is a way to create that thought and an idea of wholeness in a way that is a simplistic term. But we want you to recognize that the individual that is walking in the human body can create the understanding of wholeness by being able to understand that they are physical, the body, the soul, that energetic pattern, and the ability that the mind creates to move through this earth, through this understanding of what is. And we want you to understand that the wholeness in our eyes and our understanding means that the human understands the concept of being all things, not just one thing, meaning not just a human, but I am all things. I am the stars, I'm the sky, I am the energetic patterns, I am the earth, I am breath, I am everything, all that is. That's wholeness. And their description.
Beautiful. If you were to make any changes to current educational systems, what would they be?
Oh gosh, I don't have kids, so I don't know. So that's a trick question for me. But we want you to understand, again, is that creativity. They're saying we want you to understand that creativity is an important component in the human process, and humans have developed, meaning they have developed, not but basically they brought the creativity process down, and it's made it smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and less important and less significant. And what the human realm hasn't begun to really fully understand is the capacity of creativity creates the wholeness and the oneness that lies within. The human capacity to create has been limited in many different versions, and we want you to understand that this is what is hurting and harming the human realm in a way that is causing destruction. Okay, so what happens, is that a lot of times when my guides talk about moving into this fifth dimension energy, it's getting back into our creativity. It's getting back to playing. It's getting back to using our imagination and our dreams and creating these things that are not structured. Okay, so what happens is that when we're kids, we're taught to play. We get to play, we get to create, we get to, make art projects, we get to play music, we get to play and create. But then as we move through life, it's more up, okay, well, now you got to start thinking. Now you got to start living from up here. You got to start in the rat race. You're running and you're trying to keep up with everybody else and everything and do the job and work 60 hours a week and all of that stuff. And so we lose that part of us that's creativity, which is very divine. And they're saying, so what we would like to say is to bring creativity as a master course within the educational system of humans.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What is the ultimate purpose of life?
Love. We want you to recognize that it's loving oneself to the fullest capacity and loving one another. Love is the main component of all things, and this is what we want you to know.
Okay. What is your parting message for our audience today?
Again, I'll end it with what they just said.
Okay.
Love. The first priority is loving yourself.
Yeah.
Finding that ability to fully love yourself completely. And then what you're going to find is the more that you learn to love yourself completely, you'll see the world completely different, and you see it with eyes of love and everyone else the same way.
How can people connect with you?
You can go to my website at lisawetsel.com. I also have a YouTube channel, which is Lisa Wetsel, Akashic Records. And I have a podcast, and I also do a monthly message on that. And there's lots of information there. My website has all kinds of information on there, but you can also schedule a private session with me if you'd like to do that. I do one-on-one sessions, and all the information to do the scheduling is there, as well as some other products that I have to help guide people through and give some assistance to getting through this time. So you can just click on the shop and go see what's there for helping each other grow.
Sure, we'll provide all the links in the video description. It's been absolutely a pleasure and honor having you here, Lisa. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in from wherever you are in the world. As Ramdas says, that we are just walking each other home. So thank you for co-creating the new earth along with me and my guests. If you resonate with me, subscribe to my channel, like, comment and share. Let's keep this beautiful energy in flow, in motion. Namaste. Lots of love.